Thank you everyone for coming. This is very exciting. Jayne Lytel signed her eco thriller with us several months ago. And has become an expert in the field of AI, and in fact is working with some folks at Stanford on writing code for AI tools. And so I asked Jayne if she would be willing to share some of her knowledge about AI and how, as authors, you could be using these tools to help you gain more attention for your book. And so Jayne is going to give us a little overview and some history and an understanding of some of the language. And there'll be plenty of time for questions and answers. Feel free to put any questions in the chat because Jayne said she'd actually prefer to answer questions as we go. And McKinley will keep Jayne up to date on questions if you write them during the presentation. So Jayne Lytel, very intelligent woman, and very, very knowledgeable about AI and technology. Thank you for doing this for us today.
Yes.
Yeah, I want to help authors because AI is such a controversial topic in the different writing communities that I'm a part of, and everyone just focuses on using AI to generate content when it has so many more applications that would help both fiction and nonfiction writers. So let's just get into it. So today we're going to talk about artificial intelligence, but we're going to talk about a special type of artificial intelligence, and that's generative AI. And that is the era that we are in right now. And I'll tell you what that means in a moment. First, I'll just go over the agenda. It's pretty much what Emily said, the vocabulary, but indulge me with a couple slides of the history, the tools and the models that I use, and the applications. And the applications will be more of a demonstration to show you how you can write a prompt to achieve your objective for marketing copy or whatever you want to use it for. And it is your decision, but the way it's getting integrated into everything, it's going to be really hard to avoid. And I think what will be key going forward is the transparency about, if you used it and how you used it. I mean, I have on my website AI recipe cards because I use it extensively. And then finally, we'll end up with the questions and answers. And if I can't answer a question, I'm not going to bullshit you. I'll just let you know because it gets super technical. So let's just go with the history. So there's this guy named Alan Turing. So back during World War I, when the Nazis were talking among themselves, they were talking among themselves using a code on what's called the Enigma machine. And so the US intelligence could not understand what the Nazis were doing. So they brought in this guy named Alan Turing, who's from the United Kingdom, and he's just a mathematical genius. And he developed this huge computer thing called the Bombay to break the Enigma code. And he did. He was successful in breaking the Enigma code and is credited with ending the war and saving many lives. So artificial intelligence began back in those days, and he became known as the father of AI. And you may have during the 60s, I believe, heard of Eliza, a chatbot. And so AI has evolved a lot since then. And we're in this phase of generative AI. And this is where we're going to get in just a little bit of the vocabulary. And I won't make it really technical. I'll try not to because it's really hard. So we have AI as like the big umbrella. So it's really nothing more than a software program that runs on these huge computers in these huge data centers. And it gives more of a decision when you use it, or it's a yes, no answer. Like, is that email spam or not? So with the difference between regular AI and generative AI is that the generative AI is trained on these data sets and it still uses what's called an algorithm, but the output is different. It's either going to generate new text, a new image, new video, a new something. So that is why it's called generative. And this is what I had mentioned before. So this image here is something that I generated in Midjourney, and I give the captions to say whether it's AI generated or not. And then these are the huge, I just want to show you like these are humongous servers that these software programs run on. They're called large language models. And this is actually a real picture from one of Google's server farms. And they're huge. This is the one that Meta is building out in Louisiana. It's literally as big as like 55 big box Walmart stores, like all together. It's huge. And so you can imagine the immense power, and there's been a lot of controversy about the power that's needed to run these large data centers and the pollution that they cause. So this is what the phase that we're into. And so what AI is not, these are all the tropes. No, it's not a robot. It doesn't think, it doesn't reason, it doesn't have empathy. It's not making a moral decision when it's pushing back from something that you wrote because it says, no, I can't help assist you with that. It's not making a judgment. It's using a statistical model based on probability. And there's a lot more technicalities that go into whether it's going to answer your question or not. But that's just, it's important to know that these are tropes. So they don't have a desire or conscious or anything like that. And so these algorithms, they're nothing more than a recipe. They're a set of steps that get to an outcome. Okay, it's a huge mathematical framework. So, it doesn't know what it's doing. It's just following the recipe based on probability. So you might think of AI like when you put in a question in a chat, like with OpenAI's GPT, it's like a huge autocomplete. Like, what's the probability? What for the next word that I should use to answer whatever question the person put in the chat? That's really at a very simple letter what it is. There's millions of algorithms. I mean, they do all sorts of things. And so I just want to kind of get back to, the large language model is trained on all these vast data sets, just like the controversy that's happened with Anthropic and OpenAI's GPT, where they've taken these data sets from books from places on, like, I'll call it the dark web, and then they've used it to train their large language models on it. And then it's based on this algorithm that they write, the recipe. And then what happens next? Well, it's deterministic versus non-deterministic. And I'm sorry to throw in those terms, but it's kind of important. When you run a prompt through a large language model like Claude or GPT, it's always going to give you a slightly different answer. And that is called non-deterministic. It's like when you roll the dice, you're not quite sure what the number is going to show up as. So large language models have what's called inherent variability. So it's always going to be a little different, even though the factual genre may be the same. Deterministic, yeah, it's just a calculator. You put in 2 + 2, you're always going to get 4. So it's based on all these, like, the if-then logic. So that's just traditional software. Same thing with Microsoft Word. When you put in content in the content well and you copy something and you boldface it, it's always going to be boldface. Well, with AI, it could be, one word could be a little bolder than the other. It's all that inherent variability. And then we finally get to what's called the tokens. So a token is a part of a word. So it could be a couple letters, it could be a lot of letters, and there's no standard definition of how many letters make up a token. It's all determined by whatever entity is producing the service or the application that you are using. And that's going to cost you money. So if you put in a 70,000 word manuscript into a chat file, which you can do these days because the models have improved. The analysis or whatever you've asked the model about whatever content you put in there is going to cost you more than if you just put in a simple question and didn't attach any type of document to it. So that is called the token. And so, all right, so the tools that we're going to get into, and I will tell you a little bit about these tools, and then I will demonstrate some of them. All right, this is my tech stack. This is what I like to use. Right? There's Anthropic's Claude, and I think it's one of the best for generating something creative. But again, that's based on your prompt and how you wrote it. And if you didn't write a good prompt and you got a bad answer, then you're more likely to say, oh, that is AI slop. And AI slop is actually defined in the Urban Dictionary. I think it got put in January of 2025, maybe. And it's really kind of I didn't copy it, so I won't get into it, but it's worth looking at. Okay, and then we have like OpenAI's GPT, which is more or less what most people are familiar with. So I've generated over 20,000 prompts, and I've analyzed all my prompts. So like, and I've generated over 10,000 images in Midjourney. And, so I have a pretty good idea of what makes a good prompt. I don't take any prompt engineering courses, though there's plenty out there. Perplexity. All right. A lot of people like Perplexity. I like it too, because when you enter in a prompt, it'll cite sources. And there's a reason why those particular sources are cited, and that has to do with what is on the back end of the website, meaning it's not just SEO anymore, but it's like AEO, the answer optimization engine. And that's a whole nother topic. And then we have Gemini. So Gemini is basically free if you have a Gmail account, and most people do, and I'll show you that one. And then I also want to go into Notebook LM a little bit because it's another free service, and it's worth looking into using Notebook LM, and then Midjourney for generating images. I like Midjourney much better than Dolly. Dolly gets criticized, rightfully so, because a lot of the images that it generates look very synthetic. They don't look like they're an actual realistic photograph, if that was the intent of the author or whomever was writing it. So let's get into some of the apps, which means that I'm going to bring up my computer, and I have to swap displays. Let's see. Um, swap
And
display.
while Jane is doing that,
Yeah,
I'm curious, by a show of hands, how many of you have any experience at all with AI at this point?
I'm gonna end
One,
this.
two, three, four, five. Okay. Okay.
All right, so what I'd like to do is go into GPT first. And so you can only go so far with these free models, and then you have to pay. And it's always like, what, $19 a month. So, it is what it is. And so what I like about GPT is that they have these, you can explore your own GPT. And these are like specialized GPT. So if you go to
Jane,
explore,
I don't think we're seeing your chat GPT
oh, you're
screen.
not, okay.
Yes, thank you.
So, oh yeah, I have to share this. Let me go to, where was I? Yes, okay.
There we go.
What about now?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, now? Okay, yeah. All right. So what about GPT is that you can explore GPTs. So for example, if you wanted to explore like marketing, you can go in here and you can create your own specialized GPT. I mean, I have done it, and I'll just kind of go over it real fast. So here is a copywriter. It's got 3 million users. And because there's so many of them, because I usually click on it and then I look to see how it's rated. And usually if it's under 4.3, I don't use it, even though it has 3 million people on it. So I'll just kind of go through and see what the first one has. So this has 4.4. So I'll just go with this one. So that's sort of my strategy. And then sometimes I'll click on one that doesn't have any rating and I'll try it anyways because I just like the way it was written. And so if we come in here and you click start chat, it'll bring up the chat window. So these types of specialized GPTs are trained on data that the user inserts. And so if you have a question like, so like find me bloggers who write about, or some stuff, find me, well, I'm trying to make this more marketing oriented, but you can like
Jane,
throw out a question for me.
can you make
What?
your screen a little bigger?
Make my screen bigger. Um,
We
I
can't
wonder
read the print on it.
if you can zoom in at the top.
zoom in at the top. So under video,
Or just
sorry.
control and the plus sign?
Because it's full screen on my end. So
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah,
uh, so I'm not sure.
that's okay. We don't have to be able to read it.
Well, I mean, well, you should be able to read something. And maybe if I stop sharing and share again, I can, because you should be able to see the whole thing. Um,
Maybe I need to minimize. I have it on gallery view.
um,
At the top, just above or just below the photos, is something that says View Options. And if you click on 100%, then Jane's screen becomes bigger and you can actually read what's on the screen.
Perfect.
because you should be able to, yeah.
Thank you, Jim.
Did that work? So, well, okay. You can throw out any kind of prompt that you want me to put in the chat and I'll do that and then I'll show you how to improve it. But I'm just gonna go with find me bloggers who write, about, historical nonfiction. Because if I've written a historical novel or maybe I want that particular blogger to review my book. So how am I going to approach that? So here it gives you like a whole list of blogs. So here we have the History Girls. I have no idea who these people are. But I would then go to the blog database and I would check out all of these different types of blogs and see if one of them was appropriate for what my book was about. And if it was, then I would go and write a prompt. So I'm going to bring you over to here I have some prompts that would be, oops. All right, so now I'm having technical problems. All right, let's see if I can get into this here again. Ugh, I tell you.
So, Jane, I may have missed something at the beginning here, but why did you not start with just the generic chat GPT screen?
Because I wanted something a little more specialized. So
And so
here,
how did you find this marketing one?
right. So what I did was I went into can you see on the left-hand side of my
Uh-huh.
screen? So you'll see down here at the bottom it says Explore GPTs.
Uh-huh.
So I clicked on that. And when I clicked on that, it brings up a search bar and I put in marketing.
So
And when I Mhm.
anybody can make a customized GPT front-facing platform, right?
Yes, and you can either publish it and make it public or you can keep it private. So like
Okay.
here's one that I developed. It's called the Snark. It's like the asshole engine, really. It's like when I'm writing dialogue and like someone is a jerk, and I want to make sure that the dialogue aligns with that type of character, I might, I'll say, make this snarky. Um, you wore the worst colors today. And then when I put it through the snark engine and click enter, then it's going to it's going to change the writing. And so it came up with, oh, honey, you didn't wear colors today. You declared war on retinas. And it gives you different. I've seen highlighters with more restraint. So, it's a great way to keep a character in character. So I built a snark engine, and then I built the cliche genie. And sometimes what I'll do is I'll go through. I'll take like some copy that a well-known author has written, like a chapter, and I'll put it through here, and I'll ask it to identify all of the cliches. And I do that with my own writing. And and then like, okay, so let's see. Uh,
So
um,
what, but my question about the marketing is you don't know who created that marketing version, right?
um, well, yeah, you can actually. You can go back here. We'll go back to the marketing. Okay. So when you type in marketing, and then so you go here. So it's by a community builder. You can click on that, and you might be able to find who it is. So you kind of have to explore around a little bit. But
Yeah.
I usually do it by, you know, um,
Well, I think in the beginning, you know, folks who are new to this are just going to use the regular platform, the
okay.
generic platform. Yeah.
Well, okay. So I'll just like, okay. So write me the, social media, uh, uh like a blurb for a historical nonfiction book. So here, I'm just going to copy and paste that prompt. And then if you run it through here, you'll see the answer. And so it's giving you 3 different angles. One is dramatic and immersive, the other is thought-provoking, and the other would be bold and driven. So you can kind of read through these. And so here would be like in the last one, book title uncovers the real events, real people, and real consequences behind one of history's most pivotal moments. Right. So it's kind of generic. So, the way to improve that prompt would be to say, give more detail about the novel that was set in historical fiction, like when, like, is it in the 1940s? Is it in the 1800s? And give a little bit about the character. So if we just go to a new chat, and I'm just going to put the same prompt in here. So if people are just going to use the regular prompt window, and I wrote the same thing, then you're going to get, a different answer. And you can also go up here, like here's all the different models. Um, so we have all these different, models that you can use. And the latest one isn't always the best one, depending on what your application is. So here just gave like a pretty even it gave a really generic step into the past with book title, a gripping work of historical nonfiction that brings forgotten voices, hidden truths, and pivotal moments vividly to life. So it could really about any book about historical fiction. So you can see how the specialized GPT gave a better answer, but you'd still like want to improve the prompt. So I'll go. I'm just going to go back to here and give. So this one was a really bad prompt about just, find podcasts, which you'll certainly get an answer. But
I
then
don't
if
think we
you,
can see your PowerPoint, Jane.
oh,
Sorry.
okay,
Thank you.
all right. So I'm back to okay, so let me go and show you. Well, I'm just gonna put this on I'm just gonna put this, hold on a second.
And we don't want
Actually,
to go too far into the detail because this is just an overview and, we may do another workshop where we get more specific about how to use AI to create your own social media calendar, right?
okay,
Yeah.
okay. All right, well, so let me just show you, let me just go back to the, so here's a different prompt. Here's, I'll just, so I just copied this from, um, so it'd be better to write to say, I'm an author of historical fiction novel set in Victorian England. My target audience is, 40 to 65 who enjoy authors, and you give the name of the authors. And then you say, find 10 popular podcasts and 10 popular blogs that focus on historical fiction. So this will give you a much richer answer than just putting in a prompt that says, find podcasts about historical fiction. So it's really, the specificity is really key because it gives the AI model more to work from than just something that's, so generic as, find podcasts. Uh, so here it's sort of, going through uh, more of an analysis of what you've asked, and it's doing a deeper search, and it'll come up with a better answer. Um, So I'll let it go. I'll come back to this one. I'll go to Claude. So what I did with with Claude, you can simply, for example, if there's something called projects in Claude, and I'm just going to go over it real fast because it can be really helpful with what you're doing if you're trying to develop, marketing copy about your book. And so what you would do is that you create a new project. And it's really not that hard to do. It's here. And when you create a new project, then you have the opportunity to, I guess it's a little slow. Um, Here it is. So you name your project. So, my nonfiction book. And you can skip, what you're trying to achieve, just create the project. So the idea behind a project is that you feed it information. So you have this opportunity over here called files. So what you would do is you would upload your novel, your nonfiction, your own writing on something else. So it has an idea of what your style is, your voice. You can put other marketing copy up there. You can put whatever you want, and then you use the chat bot here to ask it to write an instruction based on what you want to do, and then you put that here in the instruction. So what I have done is, I'm going to show you some of the projects. So for example, I have what's called the dialogue lab. And so I have put in a lot of different types of files. I don't know why it's so slow. And I have written this, so I put in, the sequel that I'm working with, an outline of it. I put in some chapters of books that I have bought that, would be unique to what I'm trying to write. I put in some other research about, cybersecurity attacks because I write a lot about that. And I put in the instructions, and I asked GPT to write the instructions, and it wrote the instructions, and I put it in here. I save it, then all I have to do is like, so when I'm writing a prompt, it's just looking at the information in this particular project to help me write better copy. So if I want to like figure out, okay, I want to write marketing copy for Instagram or Facebook, and like, well, to say what are the parameters that I need to follow. So you can define all those in a project. And so then when you generate the copy, it's going to align to those rules that you've defined. And so that's how projects work. And they're really worth, doing. And yes, it's part of a professional subscription. So Google has something else called Notebook LM. So like sometimes, so it's basically the same kind of idea. You put in your material. So you upload a source, and you can put in a file, a website, or copy text. And then when you ask a question about it, what it does is it looks at whatever your sources are and it gives you an answer. And the reason why I like it is because it gives you different types of links to back to the original copy. So you know it's just not making it up, that it's actually citing the source. And I find it really helpful if you have to listen to a really long YouTube video, you can actually put in the link to the YouTube video and it will transcribe it and it'll chunk the information in whatever way that you want to do. So I have like created, and this is all free, like I've created all of these different types of notebooks depending on what I'm trying to achieve. So I could go into that and then you can publish it or not, or just keep it private. I generally keep all my things private. It's like, I don't really want people into my space. But you don't have to do that. So that is something that is very valuable, I think, with Google's notebook. We can go back to GPT, see, answer now. So sometimes it does get stuck. I'm just gonna stop.
Jane, I just wanted to add, when you did the prompt for podcasters,
Mhm.
or bloggers, I did that one day and I said, give me all the podcasters who have interviewed people or talked about this topic. And then I gave the book summary,
Mhm.
and so they gave me a list. And then I said, please give me the contact person for each of these podcasts. And they gave me that list, the email address and the name. And then I said, please come up with a plan for reaching out to them. So it wrote the request, that they include me in their lineup. It did all of the work for me. So when I started the prompt, I had no idea which podcasters to reach out to. And at the end of the process, it was all ready to go, which is amazing.
Yeah, it can do things like that. And then like you can so this is like the results from the more enhanced prompt that I used about I'm an author, blah blah blah. And it gave me like 10 popular podcasts. And then it gives me a link to it too. So there's something called human in the loop. So you really do need to go back and verify whatever links if you're using it in something that you want to have published, because a lot of times with some of these models that do cite the sources are old, and it could be an article from like 2010 or something like that. And if you don't want to use something from 2010, you want to use something from the past 4 years. So it's really important to then look at the link, see when it was dated and see if there's an updated version of whatever information that you had asked it about. So, so I like to use, when I go back to, um,
Jane,
going
sorry,
through
just to
notebook.
jump in here. We do have a question in the chat from Jim, and he's asking if they upload their books as a new project, I think in Claude specifically, does their work become part of the LLM?
So you can opt out of whether you want what you're uploading in to be used as part of their training data. So you really need to read the terms of service. So I would download the terms of service and I would upload it in say in Notebook LM. You can just have one copy and ask, what it says about artificial intelligence. And then it'll give you the link back to wherever it mentioned it in the terms of service. So you can go back and look specifically at where in the terms of service, because these are very long, complicated, and legal documents. And no one wants to read through the whole thing. So it helps you kind of pinpoint where in the document it mentions artificial intelligence, so you can go and read what it says about it. But like with OpenAI, you can opt out. Like I've opted out of it. But that's what you would need to do. It would either be in the terms of service or the privacy policy. I would say probably the TOS.
But you can also ask ChatGPT how to turn that off.
Yeah, sure. You can just go here and say, let's go back to, how do I ensure that any content I upload to you is not part of your training data. And it'll give you an answer. Generally, it's like a little hard to find. It's usually in the settings. And you have to kind of dig around for it, like advanced settings. So totally fair question, blah, blah, blah. And it gives, yeah. And so turn off, improve the model for everyone. So it tells you to go to settings, data controls, improve the model, make sure it's off. So it's important to do that if you're concerned about that. I mean, if your data is not in one of these models, it's probably, on the dark web anyways. There's all these sites like Anna's Archive just went dark, but there's Z Library and there's, the PDF Ocean. I mean, my book from 2008 is on there. Some publishers will complain to the sites to have the content taken down, but not everybody does. And you can go and get about any book you want for free. Anyways, it's another topic. Another thing that you can do for marketing is you can set up what's called a task in GPT. And so I have a task here on newsletters and AI. And so what that gives me is what's happening in the industry with artificial intelligence, and not just like the publishing industry, but also with different types of creative platforms for storytelling. And it's just taking a while to come up here, but when it does come up, it shows me all like the recent articles, and I'll go and visit them. So, I'll go back to, so I'm just going to go back to, so Gemini's another one. So Gemini comes with a Gmail account, and you can either go pro, which is like $20 a month, or keep it free. And so you should be familiar with like all these different tools here. So when you click on the tools, for some reason it's not, you'll have a lot of different opportunities to do like deep research, or if you want to generate an image. So or write anything. So it gives you, different types of, write a spicy comedy bit about a pet peeve. So you can just click on that and you can have it provide an answer for you. It's just sort of giving you, content to generate. But let's see what it came up with.
So, Jayne, is it true that Gemini is more up to date than ChatGPT? Isn't there a lag time?
There has been a lag time, and it varies with the models. They have gotten better about being more current. I'm not sure, like the GPT one.
So,
Um,
when would you use Gemini rather than ChatGPT?
I would use Gemini if I was interested in an answer to something that's very technical. I find it gives, good technical answers. You still need to verify. You cannot use AI to fact check. You must verify independently. So, otherwise it may hallucinate on something that is not obvious. Like I was doing some research on different policies that were related to the pipeline industry, and it gave me a US code. And there was nothing odd about the US code that it gave me, but when I fact checked the US code, it had nothing to do with what the content was. And that's not immediately obvious. So you really need to use your critical thinking skills and your judgment to, to determine whether whatever content is being generated is accurate or not. Now, if you're it's always better to test it out by asking questions of an area where you are a subject matter expert, because then you will know. If you're not a subject matter expert, then you're not really going to know. So then you have to break it down in other ways. So you have to open up a new chat window. Maybe it's in private mode because you don't want the AI model to remember what you just had last said, which I have with Gemini. And then you just ask simple questions. Well, how does this work? What does this mean? And just keep breaking it down that way. And sometimes you can then put together whether what AI told you was true or false. But even when I do that and I write something up, I always have a subject matter expert, a real person, read over what I wrote and tell me, is this factually accurate? Because I like to ground my fiction in facts. And I write a lot about cybersecurity attacks. And yeah, I have some subject matter expertise in that area because I was a federal contractor for 10 years. And I worked with entities like DHS and NASA and Customs. So I know a little bit about what I'm talking about, but I'm not, there's a limit to what I know. I'm not going to be the one patching your server. But I know the right questions to ask, and that all comes about because of how you think. And you can't take that judgment away from yourself. You have to realize that AI is not, you know, it's coming up with the probability of the words, and it could be wrong. And a lot of times it is wrong. But it's not wrong all the time. But just remember that it's important to go back. So go back to here.
Jumping in here one more time, we have a question in the chat, kind of talking about maybe some of the ethics and how and when you should disclose AI use to publishers, to your readers. Emily, maybe you want to jump in here after Jayne to talk about maybe Boltstory and Xander Press's guidelines on this issue. Jayne, if you have any thoughts.
Well, even if it is AI generated, you can put it to a humanizer and edit it and make it not be AI generated anymore. For example, if I can bring this up really fast.
Well, you can't make it not generated by AI anymore. I mean, you can make it look like it hasn't been generated by AI anymore. I mean,
Well,
May,
yes,
may, may, excuse me, may I jump in here?
yes, you can jump in.
Uh, I posed the chat room question, and I wondered, for example, with your example, war on retinas, which I thought was hilarious. Wow. I wish I had thought of that. What if an author uses that word for word in in a dialogue of a character in a fiction book? So is there and what if that same author uses that excessively, not just once, but scores of times over 75,000 words?
Mhm.
Does the author have an when when does the disclosure obligation attach? And how is the author supposed to do that?
I mean, that's an excellent question. And as you know, it's a very gray area right now. I mean, technical answer, yes, you should disclose when you use it. But I think we're entering a phase of what's called hybrid intelligence, where you're collaborating with the AI. Like when I write, it's a very iterative process. I will use AI to brainstorm an idea. And I will also talk to my friends, I'm stuck on this, I don't know where to take this. And they'll give me ideas. And then I'll put it through AI and I'll get different ideas, and yeah, maybe it'll turn a phrase or something and I'll use it and I'll keep going back and forth and editing it. So I'm collaborating with it. I'm editing it. I'm not using, yeah, do I use some of phrases that AI has generated? Yes, of course I do. But overall, I'm looking at the passage overall, and overall, it is my idea. It is my story. And, it's a tool that I am using to improve what I want my output. And it's not like writing a prompt, which I'm sure some people do, and just using it, and taking that content and just like copying and pasting it all together until I have enough content for a novella or whatever I'm writing. And they don't read, they read it over maybe, but they don't really put any effort into the story. So in those situations, yeah, I think they should be disclosed. But for how I'm using it, it's my creative work, and I will admit that yes, I collaborated with AI. So I'm not giving you like a black and white answer because I don't think there is one right now. It's just looking at the attitudes of authors are just very negative about it, and I can see why because of how people are taking advantage of it. There was an article today in the New York Times, I believe, about an author who wrote like 200 romance novels using AI and is making lots of money. But, is that true or not? I don't know.
Jump
So
in. May I
there
jump
are,
in real quick? What you mentioned, it was in the Sunday
In the Sunday,
Times. Romance makes way for chatbots to write its stories, and it's worth looking into.
yeah,
And
it is.
she is going all in and using different pen names, and she's written multiple novels, and she's also started a course to teach authors how to write novels using AI. AI.
yeah.
And anyway, it definitely was a controversial article, and showed different sides of the story, but it's worth taking a look at.
Yeah, it is. I just came across it this morning. But yeah,
Was,
it's
was that the Post, Lisa? Was that the Washington
the New
Post?
York
No,
Times.
New
the
York
New York
Times.
New York
Times
Times? Okay.
Sunday Business. It's in the business section, which is interesting too.
Okay. So, so there are the ethical and moral, issues with this question, and I think Jayne addressed so, Jayne's response, addressed some of that. Then there are the business and legal issues, and so as far as copyright law goes, the idea is not copyrightable. It's the expression of the idea that is copyrightable. And so it is the way the words are put together exactly that one can get a copyright for. You're not getting a copyright for the idea. And
Right.
so if and copyright law, exists to protect human authored content, not right now, this is what I understand, not AI generated content. And so if, if you disclose to a publisher that you did use AI to write the content, they're going to want to know how much of your manuscript is AI generated, and because it's possible that if I apply for a copyright for your book and you used AI to generate 75% of the book, that your book is not going to be copyrightable. And so it is a complicated thing. There are no hard and fast rules or laws yet that I'm aware of. And so publishers are making the call themselves as they go. There's a lot to it.
Yeah, there's a lot to it. And so Italy is one. So the US Copyright Office is offering like hybrid copyrights. And Italy is one of the countries that has provided a copyright to some content. So the laws are different all around the country, and I'm not an expert in any of this, but
there are awards now
Mm.
that say if any part of your manuscript has been generated or run through AI, you are not eligible for this award.
Yes, and that is true. And so I won third place in an award for uh, for chapter in my novel about outright the algorithm, and I use AI extensively to write it. So they're only supposed to award the to people who to human authors, but I won it, and because it, yeah, I used AI, but it's like it was my idea and it was my words. I mean, I edited it so many times, but did I take a few words here and there? Yeah, just like if I submitted an article to the Washington Post and they had a human editor, someone's editing it, with those words mine? No, that was like the editor's words, but it's under my name. So I'm not a lawyer, but like I still think it's a gray area. So yeah, it's like it's your own, you know, it's your own ethics, and you should evaluate it on, on that and try to follow the laws closely as possible. But it keeps changing. Uh,
But the bottom line is you don't want to lie.
well, no, you don't. You
And
don't
so
want
if a
to
publisher
lie.
asks you if you used AI, you have to disclose how you used it.
Yes, yeah, you do. Yeah, and there's contracts now being put in publishing contracts, and publishers are using AI themselves. I mean, there's a site called Inkbloom where it's used to look at manuscripts that are coming in from authors on whether they want to assign someone to maybe, explore it further. So it's not just authors, but it's the publishing industry. It's not going away. I mean, it's being integrated. I consider it more of a tool. So I have a very specific, feeling about it. It's a tool.
So this is
But
probably a good place to open it up to questions because we only have 6 minutes left. Are there other questions? Jane, were you largely finished with your presentation?
I was finished. I mean, I have this, and I know you can't see it on this, you can see it on the screen. Um, well, let's open it up for questions. I was going to send, so the documents that I would like to send for everyone will go into like a lot of examples that I wasn't, didn't go into today. But it's a complex topic. And so I'd like to, if you have any questions, or want me to show you anything? Yeah, Jean.
Yeah, I just want to say that one, I'm utterly fascinated by all of this. And two, I feel a little bit like a kindergarten kid in grad school.
Mhm.
Much of it is where just so far beyond where I am right now. So I don't feel as though I got enough and I want to get enough or not. It's not getting enough. It's I think I have to get it gradually, so
That's,
so
that's
for me, I feel like I need to go back to the AI for dummies because that's what I am in this field, in this particular skill. And
right. And that's why the vocabulary is like really important to
yes,
understand.
I get that it is. I sure do. I sure
And,
do.
and
Yeah,
just sign up for a service and use it. Like Perplexity is free. Just go there
yeah.
and use it. Just start
That's what I've
asking
just
questions.
started
Ask
doing.
questions in all different ways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, I'll just share my daughter had set me up with the chat GPT as an app on my phone a few months ago, and it does keep a history of the things that I've asked it. It's also it also sort of it remembers what I've asked it. So for instance, I have used it to help me create sort of like a tagline or a hook. What can I how can I say in a couple of sentences what my book is about to, people, acquaintances who ask me about it, things like that. And um, that's been helpful and it does give me different tones, so this would be a more dramatic survivalist tone. This would be a more lyrical, heartfelt tone and that sort of thing. and I rarely have like literally used what it has suggested. It sounds a little too canned or, perfectly, too many it's just too concise almost. But I find that it just, like you say, kind of prompts my mind to think about it, my wording, and it's helped me with my story to really glean it down to its essence rather
Mhm.
than give a lot of details. So I might prompt it with some details, but it has helped with the essence. So I'm still just using my phone and simple, kind of like a kindergartner, but I find that it's been useful. And this is all on the computer with putting things in. I don't know if I'll go that far, but I do have a lot of gratitude for not being aware of artificial intelligence in my process of writing my book, because it came from the heart, and and I've learned along the way, and I've had a lot of feedback from other humans, friends, acquaintances, colleagues, and that is meaningful to me. So that's kind of where I stand on it. But I really appreciate your presentation, Jay. Thank you.
Yeah, and there's, like I said, there's so many other applications beyond writing. It's like research. You
Yes.
can do these deep researches. You can put in your copy, like your book, and you say, summarize each chapter in one sentence. And then that helps you write a synopsis.
Yep.
Or you develop character sheets. And it's just infinite. It's all limited to what your mind is and how you think and your judgment.
Mm. This is Laurie. I think also in terms of actually the research and fact checking, if you're writing something and you want to be sure that you're accurate about a date, about a time, about an event, about a policy or whatever, I just find it's useful, not because I'm asking about my book or what I'm writing, just that it helps to give me some grounding and some information that, yes, I may change in terms of saying, not change what I'm writing, but be more confident that what I'm writing is correct in terms of timing, facts, etc. So, you can use it different ways, but I don't ask it to write anything for me. It's just a matter of fact checking.
Yeah, so
But even then, you have to fact check your fact checks.
yeah,
Yeah, sometimes, but if you
can't
read
just,
it and you know enough about it,
Yeah.
you can
well,
tell whether it's on point. And if you're not looking for exact information, you're just looking for general information. When did when did the American Basketball League become the women WNBA, for example?
Yeah.
And it'll tell you when that happened, when it happened, why it happened, etc. So if you're writing about a certain period of time and it's American Basketball League, it's not WNBA because the WNBA hadn't been created yet, then
mhm.
at least gives you that fact, that information.
Yeah.
To make sure, and I don't really care what all the details are about the American Basketball League. I just want to know when the name changed, when it became something else.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. That makes sense. Well, Jayne, thank you again. This was so educational.